Do you have a boss that's totally difficult to work with? Well, this week on Motivation and Confidence, we're going to give you 3 tips on how to deal with a difficult boss. Stay tuned. All right, everybody worldwide, you're now tuned into Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best. And I'm your host, Tom Danger. Back this week with a new episode. I've been getting so excited, just tuning in with you guys every week. Shout out to everybody that's checking out the videos on YouTube. Shout out to all the people that I've met on Instagram. Being able to put a face to the actual listeners is really cool. And to be able to chop it up and talk with you guys and get a chance to see a glimpse of what goes on in your lives and vice versa, I think it's really cool. Our goal here is to share personal stories of things that I've been through, and with the goal of helping you to do your daily best, stay motivated, and be confident in your everyday life. And before we go any further, please like, subscribe, and share. We're on pretty much all digital media platforms. If you get a chance, check out the YouTube. I think once you get a chance to see the videos, listening to the podcast is one experience, but actually watching the video is pretty cool. So if you're on YouTube, just Google Motivation and Confidence, Tom Danger. Everything will pop up. All right. And also, not to make it hard for you guys, we'll make it easy. So it's going to be in the link in the description, flowpage.com/Tom Danger. Okay. And if you choose to connect with me on social media, mainly Twitter and Instagram, both handles are also at Tom Danger. And always, if you have a topic or a guest that you would like to feature on the show, email me, Tommy Danger, TOMMYDANGER @gmail.com. And then I have a very, very huge favor to ask you guys. I'm looking to build my email list because I don't have that many people on my email list, and I keep hearing that the internet is going to explode soon, and then we won't have any way of connecting with each other, mainly social media. So I'd like to stay in contact with you guys. Nothing spammy. I don't even like emails that much, but just to stay connected. If you could please send me your email address, or again, I'll make it easier. I'm going to put a landing page inside of the comments where you can add your email address, and I greatly appreciate it. And also, if you don't mind, forwarding it to someone else who may benefit from the topics that we discuss on the podcast. And this week, I think we have a pretty good topic. I think it's something that the majority of us have experienced in our adult lives, and that is how to deal with the bad boss. Okay. I think that, let me rephrase it, not only how to deal with a bad boss, but let's narrow it down and say 3 things that you could do today to help you deal with a bad boss, because it's so broad and I don't want to leave it all over the place. I've had my fair share of bosses that are micromanagers, and some people need to be micromanaged. Some people need to have someone down their back that basically says, hey, you need to be doing this at all times, but not all of us need that. And I'd like to encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to take the DISC assessment or the personality questionnaire. That's also in the comments of the podcast. I'll leave the link there. And the reason is, the better that you understand yourself, the better you can navigate situations that you're in. If you know, for example, that your personality type is aggressive and your boss personality type is aggressive, I always like to use the example of betta fish. You can't put 2 betta fish in a tank at the same time, because the only thing they're going to do is try to kill each other, right? At the same time, if you are looking at a team and everyone has one personality type but it doesn't have any leadership. Like, let's say if everyone has a C personality type who are pretty much like the people in the background, what we call the grounds crew, to keep things moving and keep things in order, but there's no one at the top giving them leadership, there could be some friction there, because with that type of personality, you need direction and a process for what you do. You don't like things to be all over the place. So I highly encourage you to take the DISC assessment and find out which behavioral type is your superpower, as we like to call it. And that's something that basically scores higher or the highest out of from 0 to 100. You know, the D, the I, the S, and the C from 0 to 100. In which category do you basically scale higher? And that tells you what your natural trait is and what your adaptive trait is. And your natural trait is how you do things without thinking about it. And then the adaptive is basically how you do things when you're being watched. Okay. I want to be transparent here. Like, I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. Like, I'm not gonna try and sugarcoat it. You know, I've had some bosses that were just totally unbearable. Some bosses that were just like totally disrespectful. I've had some bosses that have accused me of like flirting with their wives. I've had certain bosses that, you know, didn't really care to interact with me because of, you know, my skin color. I've had certain bosses that were just, actually, I've had a boss that was also African American, but it turned out to be one of the worst interactions ever, because it was sort of like, I don't want to say crabs in a barrel, but it was more or less like you think you want to be treated special because you light skin type of thing, you know. And it was like the saddest thing that I could have went through, because I'm thinking like, okay, here's a gentleman, he's older than me, he's African American, he can guide me and help me figure out how to get to the next level. When he's seen that I was actually friends with people from other cultures, he ain't like that, right? He thought that I should only befriend him since he was the one that brought me on board. But when he seen that, like, I had other co-workers that were from other nationalities, and I would kick it with them and talk to them and be straightforward, he was like, he said, I can't trust you because you're going to turn on me, right? And I remember calling one of my family members who's been in corporate America longer than me, and I was like, yo, what do you do when you have a boss that's African American and they throw shade toward you? And his response to me basically was like, I don't know what you're talking about, because I ain't never had no African American boss. So that was another roadblock that I faced. And I say this because no matter what job you're going to get into, there are going to be coworkers and bosses that you get along with and that you don't get along with. And something that we have to take ownership with is, when you are interviewing for a job, the first thing we think about is, most of us, and this is just keeping it 100, most of us think about the money. We don't want our families and ourselves to be basically in poverty, right? Like, we don't want to be without, so we just want to get a job. When you take the personality assessment, it's going to tell you, based on your personality, what type of careers are good for you. It's going to tell you what type of environments you will thrive in. It's going to tell you what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And if you know these things before you even go into the job, I bet you 9 times out of 10, most of you are applying to jobs that you have no business being in that position, and you're doing it just for the money. And then after you get in that position, you're upset because you feel as if you're being overlooked for promotions. You feel as if you're being slighted. You feel as if you're not being respected. When in all actuality, it's on you to really check out the space that you're going into before you say yes. You know, I was talking to my wife earlier about this, and it's like, when we live in a particular neighborhood and the conditions aren't the greatest, and we got people on the block that we don't get along with, right? We figure out how to live in those shitty conditions. But then some of us, when we get a particular job and our bosses throw heat at us, now all of a sudden we want to huff and puff like we can't handle it. But you've been handling the block for all these years. So I'm really confused about what's the difference in your survival strategy for home base, but not for the workplace. Because you figured out how to do it when you're in the hood. So why can't you figure out how to do it when you're at work? You know the personality types that, and this is just from dealing with people, that you can bring a little closer. Some people are a little shady. Some people try to throw you in a bus. Those are people that you keep your distance to. Based on your work performance, sometimes you have a boss that feels as if they're threatened by you. And when they're threatened by you, they may become a micromanager and look over your shoulder and try to figure out how do you know the things that you know, or thinking that you're trying to take their spot. And I think a lot of us don't pay attention to sometimes it's not even you. It's actually the other person's insecurity. They're insecure about something and they're reflecting that on you. And when you let someone else's insecurities reflect on you, that throws you off your game. And it throws you off your game because you're not aware. But when you're aware, again, when you're in a particular block and you move in, and you see how people act in the neighborhood, and which people are friendly and which people act snobby and which people show off, and which people make a lot of noise and all that, you figure out how to navigate it. It's no different from being in the workplace, right? So if you do have a difficult boss, we're going to basically narrow it down to 3 small things that you could do to basically improve your workday, because that's all it is. You want to be able to navigate your work days with the least amount of stress, right? That's what it boils down to. You want to go to work, do what you got to do, and go home. And before I even start these 3 things, if you are in a situation where you just absolutely don't like it, understand that you always have a choice. Now, I'm not saying that you need to jump ship, but there are always other options. You have a choice to look other places. So if your employer is just like totally unbearable, put your resume out there. And I don't want to hear it about, oh, my job, they're going to try to, crap on me because I'm making a move. If you don't like the boss and you don't like the place that you work for, why are you worried about them crapping on you? Because apparently they're already crapping on you in the office, so why are you worried about them crapping on you about what you're doing outside of work? Focus on what you want to do. Focus on the type of environment that you'll thrive in. Focus on the type of jobs that you're going to thrive in. And think about what your strengths and weaknesses are. Like, again, you have to assess a company. You have to assess people before you say yes. You're not going to get in a relationship with a guy or a girl and you know nothing about them. But we just treat a job like that because they say, oh, here's a check, right? So you get the check, then they treat you all crappy, and then you're upset. Truthfully, you need to be upset at yourself because you are the one that accepted it, and then you are the one that choose to stay in those conditions, in that condition. Now, people will say, but Tommy, I got kids, I got a family, I got to take care of them. Absolutely. And because you need to take care of them, you need to be in your best state of mind to help your family be as productive and as loving as possible. Because when you're in that environment, when your boss is no good to you, now your kids see it, your ladies see it, you come home at night, you're tired, you're grouchy, you're not giving your kids the attention they need, you're not giving your lady the attention that she needs. And most of us are always trying to start a side hustle or become entrepreneurs. So more than anything, now that you drain from that day gig, you're not giving your dream baby the attention that it needs in order to get it off the ground. Because now you've given something that has no love for you, something that doesn't respect you. You're not even smart enough to figure out how to navigate it, but you'll fall to the default of just being angry. Don't just be angry, do something about it. So if you have a boss that's a micromanager, one thing you could do is Stay 2 steps ahead of them. Like if you have a boss that always asks you a particular question, like every day, or they nitpick at something, and you know what that one thing is, have that one thing ready for them so that when they come to you, it's like, I got it. It's right there. It's done. And have it to the point to where what people try to do, especially as micromanagers, they try to hit you with a question that is going to throw you off so that you get stumped. And once you get stumped, here's the mind game that they play. Once you get stumped, they're going to ask you a bunch of other questions to make you feel as if you don't know what you're doing. But when you really, really know what you're doing, you ain't got to worry about that. So if it's something that they always ask for, stay 1 step ahead of them. Now, you have other bosses to where a lot of us may say, this person, they don't even deserve to be the boss. And this is true. Just like when we talk about personality assessments and what jobs you should be in, a lot of managers get promoted by default because other people have abandoned ship and they're like the last person standing, and some roles just need a manager. This person has no management training, but they've stuck it out through the fire. So now people go, okay, let me make you a manager. And then they have people on their teams and they have no idea how to run a team. So you have to learn how to be strategic and deal with them. And sometimes you have to act as the leader. And when you act as a leader, this is the second thing. You act as the leader. And when you act as the leader, you always make the boss feel as if they're still the boss. So you present the ideas like it's your idea. You know how to run shop. You know how to make stuff function and flow and keep things, moving. But you make them still feel as if they're in charge. In The Art of War, is it The Art of War? No, I want to say in the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene. First rule is never outshine the master, right? So you always want them to feel as if they're the ones that's in charge. And all you're doing is you're seeding them the information so that they can feel good on themselves. This is what I did. No, you didn't, because we know that you did it. You're the one that's doing all the work, okay? Now, these are just some tips that I'm giving to help you navigate a job that may be a bit stressful. That's not to say that this is where you should stay. And again, there are going to be other jobs that you go to where you're going to have other coworkers that are just as shady, that make the workplace difficult to be, that make the environment really crappy. So you also have to know how to navigate with them. Okay, that's number 2. And the third thing is you need to identify triggers. If you're dealing with a difficult boss and you see certain things that just send them off the deep end, or like just when they don't get a particular information, or if something just rubs them the wrong way, it's sort of like, know what that is so you can stay out of the way. Or know what that is and learn how to deal with it so when that trigger does come up, you know how to navigate it. Because all of us have triggers. There are different things that basically set us off for different reasons. Sometimes it could be something as small as, I don't know, something not being organized, or a report not being created, or people taking off personal time, or even though that shouldn't be the case, but some bosses act like that, So those are 3 things that I would recommend. Again, to recap, stay 1 step ahead of them. If it's something that they're looking for, make sure you have it in advance. Second thing is sometimes you have to act as the leader. Make sure that you run everything behind the scenes. Give them credit, even though some people may disagree with that. But again, this is just something that I would recommend so that you could make your life easier. And the third thing is identify triggers. If there are particular things that basically send them off the deep end, learn what those things are. Learn how to counter them. But also learn what your triggers are. Right? Because this way you can balance. You don't want to, again, be the 2 beta fish in the tank because 2 of you have assertive personalities. Right? So that's my spiel for today. This is Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best.